Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning into another Super Tease video. And in today's video, we're talking about the biggest criticism of World of Warcraft's expansion, The War Within. Now, I've been spending a lot of time researching everything that's coming in the next expansion. I love just relaying news related to you about what's really cool and exciting, what are some powerful options for you into the next expansion, and making sure that you stay up to date. But within this research so far, I have noted that there is one common trend between all of the content that I'm consuming related to The War Within, and it is this criticism that player power should not be directly tied to class fantasy, and that the major criticism for the hero talent system is that maybe you're a hunter and you really want to delve into the hero talents of the Dark Ranger because you feel really, connected to the fantasy that a Dark Ranger would provide to you as a hunter. But if those hero talents aren't your best in slot talents to perform in the content that you want to be able to do, you're going to run the risk of holding your group back or potentially being declined on invites. Or if you're somebody who enjoys both, class fantasy as well as player power, you're not going to be able to hit both of those at the same time in the content that you want, which I think is a fair criticism. But you need to also take into consideration that this already exists in many other places currently in World of Warcraft. We can just look, distinctly at the baseline talent trees as an example. The Balanced Druid talent tree is one that comes to mind, as I'm a Balanced Druid main. You have multiple options to focus your build around single target or area of effect, and you'll probably know from some of my guides that I really like the Starfall build that Balanced Druid has to offer. This idea of just crashing down and rotting all of your enemies at once is a really fun fantasy. It fits in with, Tyranda's playstyle back from Warcraft 3, and it's one that I've really enjoyed. But in the current metagame of PvP, that type of AoE damage is not the most desirable. So by playing this talent tree, I have fun playing it, but I know I'm playing at a disadvantage, and that's always a bit of an irking feeling. Whereas, sticking to the Star Surge build, focusing on single target damage, is likely to perform at the highest level, and I always feel like I have to sacrifice that element of not being able to play the thing that I want because it's tied directly into player power. The next thing that this is already deeply rooted into is racial selection within World of Warcraft. You may be somebody who really likes the cosmetics of a Draenei, but the performance of those racials is, not min-max to be the number one performer for the content that you want to do. So you're forced to play a race that you don't really, feel any sort of fantasy or attachment to or excitement for playing, just because it's going to be offering you a more powerful racial option in that competitive mode of the game. And that always feels, a bit funky. Mind you, I feel like they've tried to do their best to where this is really only impacting the top, like 0.01%. For example, in the current builds, I think I could play Starfall and get pretty much every in-game reward aside from possibly like rank 1 PvP titles. That might be stretching it a little bit, but people are so dead set on they need to be playing the right options in the right build. And obviously players who want to, if they get enjoyment and fun out of performing the best and learning how to play their character the best, feel like they should be able to pursue that route. And there should be, ways to enable them to be able to achieve those goals so that they can feel satisfied. What do you guys think right now with player power versus class fantasy? I think the best example that I've seen brought up a lot is the Covenants from Shadowlands. You may have been somebody who really likes the Kyrian Covenant. You're vibing out with the owl dudes playing the flute. I was vibing with the owl dudes playing the flute. Okay, just a little bit. But that might not have been your best Covenant. So your guild made you go the other one, the Venthyr or something or other, just because it was performing better. And we saw kind of like these yo-yoing of balance changes throughout the patches, and it really took a while until things got closer. But I don't think it ever was like, this is okay to play no matter what situation. It was like, this one's usually better single target or better AoE, and it depends on what talents that they're enhancing. Whether or not the core ability itself is single target or AoE tends to be a pretty common trend, at least when it comes to content. I think PvEers, we've seen this with set bonuses, really opt for things that are area of effect, because a lot of their content, in Mythic Plus is clearing trash and multiple monsters, whereas in PvP, it's usually about burst damage, control, or survivability. So single target or defense tend to be things that you want to be going after, which means that these hero talents, if they are set towards an AoE build, are likely going to be more locked in for PvE players, or if they're set to defense or single target, they're going to be locked more in for PvP players specifically, and not for the player who is just like, I want to be a Keeper of the Grove Druid, or I want to be a Mountain Thane Warrior. It's not going to be for that. It's going to be, this buffs all of my talents for AoE, so I need it in the content that makes AoE the best, and this one's really good in single target, it gives me defense, so it's going to be the best in those types of situations. And you're not really picking based off the fantasy of it. Whereas if they did just do, you know, class skins specifically, whether that was like shadow arrows for a Dark Ranger, or maybe just like, you know, green leaves coming out. I mean, I'm struggling here to come up with some ideas for like Keeper of the Grove Druid specifically, but I'm sure their art team obviously would do a lot better job than I would here on the spot trying to come up with that. And this appears to be the main criticism, is where do we draw the line? We're adding another layer of choices that ultimately, when we run it through the sim machines and we run it through everything and we test it out and play it through, there's going to be a best in slot option. So it's going to be just a matter of, you know, trying to balance those skills as much as possible, but with how much public access there is to data that can analyze the game, it's eventually going to come out as to which options are the best, even if they're really, you know, narrowing in on the tuning and trying to make it as good as possible. There's just going to always rise to the top to be a best, and then they can try and counteract it by buffing the other one that wasn't represented, but now the people who didn't want to play that one are playing the one that they didn't want to now, and it can become really tough to satisfy everybody when those are the two main points of contention. Now, I view the hero talents as a way for them to maybe, you know, balance out abilities that are, you know, more baseline undesirable. So, you know, the fact that there's warrior talents that focus around Thunderclap and Fury Warrior and Arms Warrior. Well, Arms Warrior a little bit more than Fury, but Fury Warrior doesn't really have Thunderclap as some sort of interesting way to be integrated into the kit. So this is a good way for them to, you know, make Thunderclap more appealing or more exciting for the spec and perform better. So it's something that you can consider as an option in your build for players who like Thunderclap and just want to be smashing the ground a lot really hard. So I see this, the point of view on their side, and that's what they're trying to look at and what they're trying to enable. But I think for, you know, the players in the game who, you know, want to do group content where the group wants to perform their best and not feel like they're getting held back or not getting trolled, they're going to min-max this. They're going to figure out which ones are the best, and then those are the ones that you're going to feel like you're kind of locked into. Even if maybe you like one specifically, if it's not the top performer, your group's going to make you not do it. And I mean, we could say like, okay, that maybe that's a bad group and you should just go find another group. But then you're not able to satisfy those goals of, you know, performance pursuit as well as class fantasy pursuit. Like, of course, you could just be casual, play with casual people who don't care and don't mind. But if you're playing on the performance side of it, where that is where they're trying to gauge everything, it's going to become a mess in that sense. And this appears to be the main criticism so far, which is why I wanted to make that video to talk about it with you guys. And so you could let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. But thank you very much for watching the video. I hope that this has got you up to date with some of the possible problems for the next expansion. And I can't wait to see the new hero talents that they're going to be announcing here pretty soon. So if you don't want to miss out on that, make sure to smash the subscribe button. Your support is greatly appreciated.